Okay, Lucid. What's going on? Lucy got some splaining to do because things are not working, okay? I take no pleasure in this because I should preface from the beginning that I think Lucid Airs are beautiful vehicles, and my jaw kind of dropped a little bit when I saw this rendering of the Lucid Gravity. I was like, that's a sweet looking SUV. I admire the efficiency, I admire the powertrain, I admire the battery pack technology. Lucid has got a lot of cool intellectual property, but they reported their second quarter delivery numbers, and they were a miss, and by quite a wide margin. Not just a little bit of a miss. We're talking about a 30% lower than what Wall Street was expecting based on Lucid's guidance, which they've already cut so many times in 2023, delivering just over 1,400 vehicles in Q2. So, okay, a couple years ago, Lucid didn't deliver any cars. I guess 1,400 is better than nothing, but the truth is, they're actually delivering less cars in Q2 than they are in Q1. That is not a good sign for a company that's supposed to be in its growth phase. Okay, I'm not going to compare them to Tesla because I feel like that's just going to be an unfair, different contextual environment in a different stage of history that these two companies are in, so I'm going to compare Lucid to Rivian because Rivian started deliveries around the same time as Lucid, and they're both electric vehicle startups that are targeting fairly high-priced markets. I know Lucid is a bit higher than Rivian, but still, that's the closest example that I can compare them to. And Rivian has been healthfully growing their production and deliveries, in fact, even beating expectations within the past couple quarters, delivering tens of thousands of vehicles and ramping up production as the year progresses and looking for ways to cut costs and improving their product offering simultaneously. Whereas Lucid, who just as much as Rivian has been boasting in the past about how they're going to grow deliveries over time and how they're going to increase their market share and create more product offerings so that more people are incentivized to buy their vehicles with cheaper options. And here we are, and Lucid's not growing their deliveries, and based on the fact they were building over 2,000 vehicles in Q2, this once again points to the sign that Lucid is the only EV company that is facing a demand problem. Tesla is still beating expectations in terms of their production and delivery. Same thing over with Rivian, and when it comes to other EV companies, most of them can barely keep up with their orders, and I think Lucid has put themselves in a very difficult position by not emphasizing enough their own charging infrastructure. I think that has turned away so many potential buyers from watching YouTube videos of people experiencing the Signet surge with their Lucid Air. It just takes away all of the point of having a 500-mile range. If your charging experience is weakened and unreliable, then you don't want to bother spending that much money on a car to just be a beta tester. Lucid focused so much on their high voltage architecture, and Peter Rawlinson doesn't shut up about their 920 volt system and how great that is for fast charging and everything, but they just relied completely on Electrify America to do all of the heavy lifting for them, which was a really, really bad hill to die on. That was a bad expectation to just assume, oh yeah, a third party can handle all of our charging infrastructure. Tesla knew from the beginning that's not a safe bet. Same thing with Rivian, so that's why they're building out their own charging network. And I think what bothers me more so than the production and delivery numbers not being too great for Lucid is also the narrative that they keep pushing around their vehicles. Like, both I've seen from Lucid fans and investors and from Lucid's own CEO, Peter, they seem to have this mindset of, rather than trying to take responsibility for their bad charging experience with Electrify America, which I feel like Rivian was a bit more transparent towards it. Like, RJ in interviews talked about how upset he was that a lot of their customers would buy their truck, plug into EA, and it wouldn't charge, and how that became a deal breaker for a lot of their customers. So their response was, we're going to build out our own charging infrastructure that's more reliable and consistent to try to alleviate those charging pains. Whereas Lucid's response, both from the fan base and the company's chief of staff, was that, well, if you have a really long range, that means you don't have to stop in charge. You can just get to your destination without stopping, assuming your destination is about 500 miles away. I keep seeing that narrative pushed all the time of like, well, Teslas have to stop and charge, but not us Lucids. Our range is so long, we don't have to stop at all. Okay, guys, just listen really closely. I have two words for you guys. Just shut up. That doesn't make any sense. The assumption that most people are just road tripping under 500 miles, and on top of that, the assumption that most people are going to be able to charge up their 118 kilowatt hour pack at wherever their destination is. You're going to visit your relative's house with your $130,000 or $150,000 car and be like, hey, can I slow charge? Can I plug in at your garage? Or does this hotel have a free charger I can tap into? And then overnight, you're going to get a complete full charge on your massive battery battery pack and you don't need to DC fast charge because your range is just that long. This is so unrealistic, and that is so disconnected from reality. I don't care how good your range is on a vehicle, DC fast charging is important, and having a reliable charging experience whenever you do have to DC fast charge is a crucial part of the EV ownership experience. And I don't think you get to just pull the, oh, we don't need the fast charging to be reliable card simply because you have high range. And honestly, at highway speed, we've seen these range tests with Lucid Airs, and typically they're not hitting their 500-mile range mark when you're going 70 miles per hour. Same story as Tesla. When you rely very heavily on aerodynamics, it's much more easily influenced by external variables which you cannot control. So when I watch Lucid Air range tests at 70 miles per hour, they're more likely to get 430, 450 miles of range, which honestly is not all that different from what like a long-range Model S is gonna get. And I hate to break it to you, Lucid fans, but a ton of people drive more than 400 miles on their road trips. And that's particularly what's gonna happen when you're marketing your vehicle to be a high-range one. It's not that people are expecting to not have to stop, it's just that they want to make better road trip time because, yeah, they drive further than 400 or 500 miles on a charge. And on top of that, Lucid has already made these claims that the 500-mile range option is going to be a lot more niche and going to be a lot more rare, and most of their customers are going to be buying things like the Lucid Air Pure, which are closer to $90,000 or less, and those vehicles, they're barely breaking the 400-mile range mark. So using the argument that you don't need to stop because your range is so long really doesn't make sense when Peter Rawlinson himself is also simultaneously claiming, well, in the future, most EVs are going to be 250-mile range and just rely on a charging infrastructure. You can't make that claim and then not be working on your own charging infrastructure and just say, well, Electrify America is going to take care of all of that for us. No. That argument does not work. I don't think that can hold up, especially when Electrify America for years now has proven to be as unreliable as they are. Honestly, with that attribute of Lucid, I agree. I do think most EVs in the future are going to be sub 300 miles and probably rely mostly on DC fast charging, but Lucid isn't even doing that. It's kind of like they're self-admitting that the vehicles they're making today are not going to be prepared for the future, and they don't seem to care too much about the NACS transition. They're just focused on high voltage without any concern or any worry with how poorly Electrify America is treating their customers because it was basically a punishment out of Dieselgate rather than an actual charging company that is incentivized to make good charging experiences. Whereas a company that's in a very similar situation to Lucid, Hyundai and Kia, most of their EVs are built on the higher voltage architecture, and now everybody's switching to NACS. They're still in talks with Tesla. They're still trying to figure out, and they are publicly stating that yes, NACS is on the table. We want to switch to NACS, but I'm sure what the conversations with Tesla are like are how can we ensure that we get higher voltage charging with the supercharger network. And that's the only reason they haven't full on committed to NACS yet, is they want to get confirmation on the higher voltage charging, but they're telling everybody that yes, they're excited for NACS, and yes, we're in talks to try to make it happen. But Lucid is just acting like, none of those connectors matter. CCS1 is fine. All that matters is our high voltage architecture. And clearly, I feel like Lucid has a disconnected perspective of reality. And I think they're just imagining that their vehicles are used for driving around rich people across town. Like, it's not really for road tripping. It's a super high range vehicle that you mostly just charge from home via AC charging. If that's really all your vehicles are for and you don't really care about the road trip ability, then why are you selling $150,000 cars with 520 mile range? Like, you should be making 250 mile range EVs for $50,000, $60,000 that just have really luxurious interiors, because clearly people love the Lucid aesthetic, people love the exterior, the interior. Just sell that with a substantially smaller battery pack. You'll get way better efficiency by all of those weight savings by using a much smaller battery pack, and you'll have better floor space inside the vehicle and probably have much better profitability if you don't have to ship a 118 kilowatt hour pack with every one of your sedans. That can't be cheap. I know it's costing Lucid a lot because their quarterly earnings are always so bad and much worse than we expect. And that's probably why Lucid has stopped reporting the number of reservations they have, because it's likely not good info. I'm pretty sure that trend of Lucid losing about 1,000 reservations per month has likely continued. They're losing customers fast, both the potential ones and the current ones, and it frustrates me to see them not shift strategy and to go into this period where they're trying to ramp up Gravity production. The spending and the cash burn is just going to get worse, and I think because their situation is so bad, again, I don't want Lucid to fail, I just want them to rethink their strategy a little bit. And all the words I get from their earnings reports and from their CEO and from their investor community is that no, everything's fine, like nothing to see here, we're just gonna stay the course and act like nothing needs to change. Things need to change because this is not sustainable. I don't want Lucid to become the next Lordstown. Maybe there's a trend here with all these L-named companies taking the L. What do you guys think of Lucid's horrible quarterly numbers, and do you think Lucid needs to rethink their strategy, or do you think they're fine and they can just rely on the Saudis to bail them out for an indefinite amount of time? Feel free to speculate along with me down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos, so thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.